You, what are you all looking to right now during this time and in the future to get more confidence in Hedron and Icosa? Is there particular metrics that you're hoping happens that may make it you're really confident in the projects or not? Like, are there any particular parts of these two projects that you're looking to through this time?
I think it's the metric everyone hates the most, and it's time.
Okay.
Everybody hates that metric. It's like,
You gotta wait.
you know, if you look at, they hate waiting. People hate waiting, hate it. If you look at, let's talk about Hex for a second. Hex comes out, right? Flawless, immutable code, right? And Richard Hart constantly was saying, it's perfect. It's perfect. It's perfect. It's immutable, 100% uptime. It was very obvious that he wasn't planning on building something on top of Hex. Was it not? I thought it appeared to me it was pretty obvious. He might go do something else, right? Like PulseChain or what have you. But he wasn't going to build on top of Hex. And then you see Alex, who, as far as I know, was building Hedron for a year. So he was waiting a long time to make sure that that was true, that nothing was going to get built on there until he finally took the plunge and started building. I think it's very important that you respect an ecosystem where there's a builder actively building. And I would hesitate to encourage anybody to build on a project that's not completed yet. And I'm not saying that the ecosystem is currently completed or that there's something else coming. I'm not saying any of that stuff. I'm just saying we need some time. We need some time for some maturity, is what I think. What has been built already is absolutely amazing, and it's melting faces in terms of people who look at what it can do, right? In such a decentralized nature, it's melting faces. So sometimes we need to let that mature a little bit, let the dust settle. But that's just my thoughts. When I'm looking at something, that's what I'm looking at: is how revolutionary is it? How long do we need to sit on it and watch things grow before we start saying, let's jump on the next project that is built on top? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, since I've been in Hex, literally every week, if not every day or two, something comes up, like unexpected, something that you had no idea about. And even though Hex is like a flawlessly working product, there was problems with Hex as well. When Ethereum Gas when the Ethereum Gas forked and chucked up the S load, and then all of a sudden it was incredibly expensive plus the bull, everyone is incredibly expensive to end our stakes, which caused, Richard to go down this whole PulseChain thing. So even when you have a perfect product, other things can happen, So there's risks and rewards constantly. And I agree totally with Gifford. I think time, like I have such confidence in the Hex contract now, and I can't wait till, 2 years down the track, 3 years down the track, when people have as much confidence in Hedron and Icosa contracts.
What do you think, Maxim? Did we answer your question, or did we skate sideways on it?
That's fine. I mean, it's an open-ended question.
Maxim, please repeat the question so me and Bull can remember what it was.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I'm curious, because this is what I'm spending a lot of time thinking about. What people are looking to make. I'll say it a different way: to make Hedron and Icosa projects less speculative, and actually have confidence that these are going to be around in 15 years, for example.
Bull, you want to take that first?
I'm not too sure. 15 years is quite a long time, but I guess we just gotta keep talking about it and letting the community know, or other communities know, what's going on within this community. Because at the end of the day, if there's no community that's supporting the projects, then they're not going to last at all. So
yeah,
you just got to keep going with spreading what's going on inside this community. So
I think Dipcatcher just hit it on the head too. We have entire protocols committing to hoard Hedron 15 years. I think just having, and what Bull said about the community coming around it and just being like, we're going to be here. We're going to be here. We're going to be supporting it. We're going to be buying. We're going to be staking. We're going to go through these cycles, and having faith in a project, the greatest hits like trustless, immutable, no admin keys, all this stuff. Hey, bugs can happen anyways, but you got to be okay with that kind of risk. I mean, this is new, innovative stuff. You got these amazing devs in your ecosystem pushing out code. They can't possibly, find and catch every single thing. I know this from having a dev background too. It's like there's going to be bugs. There's scenarios. Dipcatcher talked about the other day. I mentioned the bull about one of the contract. You're not even able to test certain things in testnet. How can you test auctions that aren't happening? You got to make certain assumptions. So I think these things are going to come. And I think the fail-safe he mentioned too, of saying, okay, if worst case that happens, when you're looking at the code, you have these two things you want to happen. You want a certain percentage to go to the auction, certain percentage to go to the staking. The fail-safe is like, hey, nobody lost any money. Of course, the bonus and all that stuff, but or not the bonus, but of course, the auctions didn't happen. But the rest of it just gets staked. So it's like, it's not like the whole thing melts down. At least we have those kind of fail safes, which I appreciate being built in. That's foresight, and that's something I can put some faith into.
Can I say some of my thoughts and have you guys respond?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at really ICOSA token itself is my biggest question mark through this process. How will the ICOSA parity work? Will it drop massively and never come back? Will it bounce right back and incentivize more HSIs going through the system? Will all this ICOSA yield be a problem in the end, as ICOSA does not have a burn function? And even though right now the yields are great, over time, when the pools are huge, the return people are going to be getting is smaller. Will the project be able to withstand the ICOSA inflation and the ICOSA parity through the continual growth of the project? I'm curious if that makes sense, what your thoughts are on that.
I mean, I've thought since the start that ICOSA was created as the incentive token. And so of the triumvirate of Hex, Hedron, and ICOSA, long term, ICOSA was the least. The other two are going to attract more value over time than ICOSA. But in this first year, we're incredibly incentivized to be doing all of this stuff. And so I think long term, the more value is going to flow to Hex and Hedron. But for now, it's pretty nice to be in ICOSA as well.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question, Maxim. And this is fun. I don't think I've streamed with you before. This is cool. Let's put it this way. You started streaming. Let's talk about like your first interaction with Hedron. You were worried that it was massively inflationary, and there wasn't really a burn mechanism that seemed feasible at the time. Right. And then ICOSA comes along, and you're like, oh, all right, I'm on board on Hedron. Yeah. Where are we at now in the ICOSA system? We're in a situation where we got massive inflation with no real burn mechanism. Yes. Right? So it should feel familiar almost.
Yeah, it does. Right? I have the exact same thought. I like what you're saying.
So it feels familiar. Who knows what's going to happen? No expectations, obviously. But we almost need to see a little bit of fear and panic in ICOSA, don't we? We saw it in Hedron. Remember when Hedron was just going straight down because everyone was dumping this perpetual dump token, yada, yada, get it for free, blah, 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 right? And then what happened? Hedron made its appearance and it bounced, right? So
it
should feel familiar. Yeah, Hedron. Oh, boom. God. As soon as the Hedron came out. So it should be something that feels familiar. And the only thing that I would add to that is that before we needed essentially hex stakes to collect all that Hedron, right? And what do we need now in order to collect all the ICOSA?
I don't know, honestly.
It's kind of a combination of things, right?
Okay.
It's kind of the whole ecosystem there. So it is, you got to have some Watsas, you got to be staked, you got to have your Hedron staked, you got to have your ICOSA staked, you got to, there has to be a reason to sell, right? Yeah. Your hex stakes to the contract to get ICOSA. So this may be a more complex version of what we saw happen to Hedron, just playing out in slow motion right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some fear and panic in the price of ICOSA in the near future.
Yeah,
that will just be a buying opportunity.
Yeah, I see ICOSA. I see checks and balances everywhere, and ICOSA is a part of that. ICOSA is an incentive for HSIs to be used, for example, and to go back to the buyback, and that's what's burning Hedron. If ICOSA has issues, the Hedron is potentially back where it was before, just inflating itself, and that's what I'm most focusing on right now, and where the most speculation is, where there's an unknown, and this is holding me back from going all in on the project or something. It's really, how is ICOSA going to play out?
That's exactly what you should be watching. I fully agree with you.
It really depends on your time horizons. Like even when Hedron first came out, like I understand that people just thought, oh, this is a perpetual dump token, but I always thought it's gonna play out. Like people are gonna dump it, yeah, but then like over time, because it's linked to the share rate, which can only go up, it's going to become disinflationary. And at some point, it does something very interesting in terms of, because Hex is really inflationary and Hedron is deflationary and disinflationary, and ICOSA is disinflationary. So I still think it really, it just depends on your time horizons and how these, in terms of how these things play out.
The one thing that would really concern me is if like the HSI auctions just completely dried up. Right. Nobody was bidding, nobody was selling to them, and then ICOSA got dumped. That would be a major concern. Right. But that doesn't seem too likely. So,
well, it just goes back to keeping the narrative intact, right? All these mechanics are awesome, and you get like, these mechanics are revolutionary, some would say, right? But if you lose the narrative, it doesn't matter how good the game mechanics are, everything falls apart. So the narrative still has to be there.
That's where the SA can keep just fueling it, though.
He can't do it by himself.
It's sitting on a massive war chest. He can fuel the auctions for a very long time. And then the maxi comes out after 15 years, and there's a whole nother load of that where it could continue to fuel it.